Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for attending the event today. I'm really honored to be here. So let's dive into just a second, I need the, there it is. Perfect. So according to the recent trends in the startup ecosystem, we see an interesting phenomena. The amount of money raised is increased consistently for the last 3 years. However, the number of investments that, sorry for that, the number of investments the number of investment that we see in the ecosystem has increased. However, the amount of money raised in each investment increasing consistently. So what we would like to show now is basically how we can build a situation for the company to make sure that they don't do mistakes mistakes that are unnecessarily in the process of having an IPO or an investment. Let's move on. So what is needed in order to have a successful startup? So I think a startup is a complicated creature. From one hand, we are talking about small business, but from the other hand, we talk about a global business. So you need to build an R&D and manage a global R&D team. You need to create an efficient sales and marketing process over the globe. You need to create a strategic partnership with corporations. We also need to establish a solid financial systems and IT systems that will allow you to take the company to the next level. So in order to do all of these things, the central driving force for it, as you can imagine, is money. In order to raise money, by the way, there are some other ways to achieve money, not just raising money from investors, but we'll focus today on raising money from investors. So in order to achieve money, you need to make sure that you communicate your message correctly to your investors. So before we are moving to the 5 musts or the silent killer that we would like to talk about, I would like to make sure that we understand that in each of them, or many of these silent killers, this is not something that the company is mainly in the focus of the business, and this is exactly the reason why you need to pay more attention as founders and shareholders, as managers, and as part of being a startup, you need to put much more resources and efforts in order to make sure that you meet these criteria, or not criteria, but more issues that you need to deal with. So the first one that I would like to touch is the business model. I know that for many of you, it sounds like business model, it's a trivial thing to have, but this is not the case. And I'll tell you why. Because the way to communicate the right business model depends on the sector that the company operates in. For example, if we think about SaaS company, so we need to make sure that we have the right indicators, KPIs, like we have the ARR, the annual recurring revenue, the MRR, and also churn rate, and many other indicators. However, what about e-commerce companies? So we need to deal with CAC, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime value. These are also very important for a SaaS company, but they are must for e-commerce and B2C companies. What about medical device? Medical device is a totally different story, and I think there we need to approve or to make sure that we have the ability to obtain the relevant regulatory approvals, or make sure that we have the ability to get indemnifications from insurance companies. So I think this is not just about having a business model. It's more like having a plan, a business model with KPIs that communicate correctly to the investors, and also to make sure that you have a plan how to execute it, and how to make sure that you monitor it closely along the way. The second thing is IT and financial systems. And I think here, this is a very important thing that usually deferred until it's sometimes too late or too close to the round. I know that for many Israeli startups, it sounds like this is not an important thing, but once you go out, once you expand the operation to the US, to many other markets, you must have IT and financial system in order to support the expansion, and without that, you will suffer delays in the rounds, and in some cases, we see also rounds that fail only because the company doesn't have the right infrastructure or the appropriate infrastructure to scale up. The third thing is tax structure and tax policy. So people tend to think that at the end of the day, company needs to pay attention to the tax issues only when they profitable, but this is not the case, unfortunately. The tax matter go with the company from its incorporation throughout its life cycle, each phase and its tax problems. So I think here it's very important to make sure, and I'll give you just 2 examples for it, to make sure that you know what are you going to deal with. For example, if you expand the operation to the US, do you really know what does it mean? Federal tax, state tax, sales tax, withholding tax, and many other type of taxes. I think at the end of the day, we are talking about be aware of the things that can be hurt the value of the company in a round or in a future exit. So this is one thing. The other thing, or the other example I would like to point out is when we go to a US investors and they would like to invest in a US corporation, how they should do that. This is a very interesting question because we see that a lot because of the tax reform that took place last year, but also for that there are some solutions. But the main point to emphasize here is that at the end of the day we need to be aware of the exposures, of the risks, and tax is the main risk as part of being a global business. And I think this is something that people are not aware of, and you don't need to be a tax expert, you just need to raise the flag at the right moment. Clean the cap table. I think we just heard the amazing panel before. There is a problem with the cap table of Israeli companies. People need to know how to deal with it. They need to understand that we are talking about many type of Israeli issues like verbal agreements that never got documented correctly, or unhappy ex-employees, or some dispute with the founders. I think this is something that we should be much more aware before we aim for a potential investor outside of Israel. And the last thing is expert advisors and a strong financial team. I think this is, it sounds trivial, but this is not the case. Mainly because as a startup company with the need to be a global company, you must deal with many things, not just these 4 things, many other type of issues. And in order to do that, you must have board advisors and board of directors with a diverse background. And this is very important in order to be able to fill the gap of a small company with the global expansion. And this is it. I think the business world is changing rapidly, and at the end of the day, it's very. By the way, for those of you who don't know, this is one of the most famous crosswalk in the world. This is in Tokyo, and the reason why it's here because at the end of the day, you need to be prepared in advance and to make sure that you have the right infrastructure to take the company to the next level, and make sure that you prepare to move on when the light turns on. Because at the end of the day, you raise money when you can and not when you need. And this is why you should be prepared in advance. Thank you very much.